Hi, I am Alfonso Muchacho and I am a DJ and music producer, not a YouTuber. And today I'm going to walk you through my latest track, Holding Me Back. It's going to be a very quick walkthrough just to show you how all the parts came together. So there's nothing too spectacular about all the sound design in this. I'll give you a very quick overview of how it sounds at the breakdown. So we'll go from the top down. The drum's very simple, it's just one kick. I never really layer my kicks. Nothing too spectacular there. The bass line is a classic rolling bass line. It sounds like this. And that was made using Hive. So this was a preset, Rubber Bass 2. I've probably amended it slightly, edited the cutoff, etc, etc. But for all intents and purposes, it's basically a saw wave. And what I've got is a very slight amount of saturation from SSL with EQ rolled off the top end, a limiter, and then I've just used a bit of sidechain compression to the kick so it sounds pumping like that. And I think the main part of this track that really surprises me when I play it in a club or hear it on a big system is how powerful the bass line sounds, and I think it's a testament to the fact that it's so simple. There's no crazy amounts of modulation, not drenched in effects, delays, reverbs. It's just a bit of saturation, compression, and a limiter. So the main part of the track that's the most interesting is the chords. Again, this started as a preset in Hive. I never really use Hive, I always use Diva, but I've got Hive as well, and this was one of these tracks where I just remembered that I had it, so I was like, well, I'll just start using that for a change. And this is basically, it's a minor chord, and I've played, what notes have we got here? So a D, and yeah, G down to a D. It's wonderful. I've done a little bit of processing on here, so rolled off the very lows. I've got a compressor just to bring out the attack in the beginning of the sound, just to more of a sound design tool than anything to do with bringing out loudness. It's just to emphasize the initial transient. I've got track spacer here, which is sidechained to the bass line, and what that means, as you can see, when the bass line's hitting, it's really cutting out the low end, but obviously in the breakdown when there's no bass line, the bass line isn't interfering with the low end of the chords. Works a lot better that way. I've used Saturn, which is my favorite saturator, default setting, just a little bit of drive, nothing spectacular there. And then I've used a little bit of auto pan to give a bit of width and movement. The pad is a sampled pad apparently. Sounds a little bit like this. And I've just copied the same notes that I used for the chords there, G and D. And that plays throughout most of the track, but it's quite subtle, it's quite far in the background if you listen to all the melodies. Really pushed further back so it's not getting too boring. The vocal is, what have we got here? It's me and a sample, and we're both singing at the same time. I liked it. It's obviously a pitched vocal, and then you've got me over the top, giving it a bit of realism, I guess. Just adds a little something to the track. It's not going to win me any awards. I don't think I'm up for an award at any award shows this year for my singing. Yeah, if there's one thing I could do, it would be sing, but I can't. What I can do is make melodies though, and this ARP is one of them. I'll crank it up so you can hear it. And all that is, let's have a look. So this is in Diva, a noise lead that I made myself. This is a sawtooth, very, very small amount of noise, and a layered, like a square wave underneath just to give it a bit of body, but I've probably EQ'd all of that out. Let's have a look, see. Yeah, just the very, very highest parts. Again, just more of an atmospheric, something to give the track a little bit extra. The pads in the breakdown, I've combined Parallels, which is a great synth from Softube, and Selena, which is my favorite go-to pad synth at the moment. This is a preset Res Pad layer, apparently. Together, they sound like this. What I love about these is it brings like a rising sound. So rather than just relying on risers and snares and things like that to bring tension into the track, I try and use other instruments to bring out the tension. And it's very simple. All I've done here is just opened up the filter on Parallels here, and then with Selena I've just brought the gain up, because there's not much more you can do with it. It basically sounds like a string, but you can tell I've played them in because they're all messy. But I've just added higher notes, more space up here, more tension, I guess is the right word. I don't think there's another word for it. And it just, this combined with the riser that I have made really brings the track to a crescendo. So to make that riser, and I try not to rely on sample pack risers and things like that, I try to make my own. But this, as you can see, the texture here, what am I doing? There's quite a lot going on there, but it's pretty simple. I was just experimenting and using Ableton's inbuilt effects to try and make something cool, using the shifter just to bring the pitch of the sample up, and then the spectral resonator, which I've never used before and I don't think I've used since, but it works really well here, with automation from erosion as well, just to make a rising sound. And underneath you've got analog, which is the inbuilt Ableton synth. What's that doing? It's white noise. Hardly groundbreaking stuff. And then what I've done here, you can see, is I've cut the ends of this sequence off, so that when the vocal comes through on its own, and then there's more of an impact. So by taking things away, obviously the next thing you hear sounds more impactful. Then for all the percussion stuff down here, this one's called Rustle. Crank this up. Just a rustling sound. Dog cage, I'm literally recording myself hitting my iPhone off of the dog cage, I believe. Might be a pen. When I say cage, I mean puppy crate. We recently got a new puppy. We don't keep our dog in a cage. He has to go in a little crate when he came back from where I got him from. I love my dog. So much so that I've included dog breath in here. So that is literally a chopped up sample of my dog coming after me as I'm playing with him. Using Shaperbox. I think this did start off as a preset called Breakaway, and then I've messed around with it. I've just added loads of stuff, played with it loads, and this just chops up, replays, reverses, reverbs, does everything you can imagine to a sample. You end up with a noise you would never ever get to without it. So yeah, that's my dog playing with me, run through an effect. Adds a little bit of something different. And then we have a very hi-hat, which sounds like this. Pretty boring. Full house. Just a generic house loop. And then I've used battery. What's that doing? Just playing a little pattern. And that actually really helps drive the track along. So little percussive elements like that, while they sound quite innocuous almost in the mix, they end up driving the track along and complementing the chords, which might get a little bit repetitive. So adding something in like this, just, and especially when I find when you're using a pattern which is quite frenetic and rapid, it just ends up giving the track a little bit more pace, because the track's only at 124 BPM, but when you're playing it, it really does feel a lot faster. And that's about it. There's not much more going on. I'm really trying to reduce the amount of tracks in my track. I remember getting to a stage where I was hitting 75, 80 different tracks, not all playing at once obviously, but just a whole bunch of just effects, layers, etc, etc. And I have done a really clinical job at reducing the amount of stuff going on in my music. But my music sounds more fuller than ever because it's more about the variation, the automation, the movement within the layers that you're using, rather than just adding something new, something new, something new. This is a trap that a lot of new producers fall into. Their tracks sound boring to them, so they add another layer, another effect, another melody. Whereas really what you've got here is I've got one chord, one pad, a vocal sample. The pads and the arp are only really in the breakdown, and then the rest of it is just this percussion, the percussion that I just showed you. But the reason why it doesn't sound boring over the 6.5 minutes of the track is because everything's moving, undulating, modulating, and bringing things in, out, pushing things up at certain point, bringing them back, panning them, effects, that kind of thing. And that really is the key to making what would be a 30-second loop sound good over 6 or 7 minutes. Anyway, that was my track. Nothing really to show you. I've got a load of stuff on the master which I haven't used, just using the EQ, used ozone and smart limit. I like to limit my music as I'm playing just to feel what it would sound like loud, and then I'll use something like smart limit and bring down the master by about 4 to 6 BPM or dB of gain reduction, just to feel what it feels like in a mastered setting. And it also helps you see if anything like a clap, for example, is really hitting the limiter hard. So you're getting like -6 dB of limiting at certain points. You know, why am I getting so much? And only at certain points in the track, and it helps you identify anything that maybe you've missed that's far too loud in the mix and will cause you problems in the mastering stage. But other than that, I don't have a lot on it. What I would do is I will export this as a high resolution WAV file and then bring it back into Ableton and then do a mastering session with just the audio file in front of me. So I'm not A, killing my CPU, and B, tempted to go and make subtle changes and mess around with it. So I'll export this track as a WAV file, bring it back in as a dedicated mastering session, and then I wouldn't use any EQ because I should have got it right here. I would just use maybe a little bit of saturation on the master, limiting, really. There's not much more else you'd need to add. But yeah, that's the finished track. So please check it out. It's on Beatport, Spotify, links below. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Muchacho is bad for your health.